Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for tuning into the In When You're Out podcast. I'm your host, John, and today, well, I haven't done what I said I was going to do quite yet, but it's right before I'm going to do that. So I thought I'd come on here and at least start the whole process and get everybody excited. It's not going to be much of a difference for you guys. It's all going to just be one video. But for me, I get to do some more exciting stuff. Today, once again, I'm meeting with the city, I'm meeting with a councilman, and we're going to talk about more of the issues and how we can address them and kind of go forward with a plan. Those of you on TikTok that had seen my video today, my sock video, yes, I had to delete the first one because TikTok decided it did not want to provide sound for the video. Not really sure what happens when that goes on. I think sometimes it could be a copyright strike, and the music that I play, it's just like background music. But they decided that they were going to have to take the music down, and so I only got like 2 views or something like that. So I decided just to remake the video, even though it took like a half hour to do. But that's just how the cookie crumbles. But so I remade it. It's not as fantastic as the first video was. I will say it's not as good as the first one. But as long as I do get a video out, it just makes me happy to continue my Socks with John series. So anybody who's tuning in today that has a opportunity or has TikTok on their phone, what kind of opportunity are we even talking about these days? Go on TikTok, Jonathan_E_Holmberg. That's me, Socks with John. I try to post as often as I can. That isn't every single day, but the idea is that we will create a sock company, and I think I said this in the last podcast. For every pair that we sell, we will donate a pair to the Salvation Army in your local area on your behalf, as a matter of fact. So we don't get the tax rebate. We will give that to you. So if you want to buy 150 pairs of socks or 150,000 pairs of socks, you guys get the tax rebate. That's just more of an incentive for you guys, but that's, a little bit more on the financial side of things that not every customer is going to concern themselves with. Regardless, we have maybe an hour or so before I have to go down and meet with the city. I'm very excited. I just got out of work. I got out of John's breakfast and lunch a little earlier today. On Fridays, my mom in her office, they kind of end a little earlier, so she's able to go down to Deposit, which is about an hour, 45 minutes away from Binghamton, New York. She has another office out there, and they do different types of care, but for the most part, it's still the same business, and she's still the same nurse practitioner, same provider. Anyway, this is pretty much all. It's just the little prerequisite before we get into anything major. I will have plenty of news and plenty of stories for you guys later tonight. I'm not sure when this video is going to get out. We'll find when a good time is for everybody. I say for everybody. It's just me at the time being. But getting everybody else involved or getting some other people that I want on the podcast, it shouldn't really be too difficult as far as timeliness is concerned. But when it comes to who we're going to have on the podcast, now that might be, depending. It could be somebody special, somebody nobody's heard of before, but has a pretty excitable role in the community, we'll say. Or it could be my mom, because I told her today that, I could have her on the podcast if she wanted to tell me a little bit about what she does, as if I didn't know. But beyond that, as a nurse practitioner, and now that she's been in business for about 4 or so years, she's done the 1-year anniversary for her wellness center's grand opening. She's got a lot of great insight, and as a nurse practitioner, she's obviously, very in tune with people that have any type of medical issues. Moreover, she's going to talk to us about how she understands mental health and the things that she's done to help people out, especially in our area. Whether it be our next episode, our next installment, episode 3, episode 10, whatever this really ends up being, we're going to hopefully have somebody else involved. There's a individual creator. I won't say too much right now, simply because I don't want to give away information, or I don't want to say that he still does what he does, even though he doesn't, or if there's something that I have incorrect. I'll just say look forward to possibly us collaborating with this individual and taking him on board and actually getting to have a duo podcast, not just John talking into his phone for 2 hours like I did the other day. But just as well, if people are enjoying what we're providing, we're going to keep providing, and we're going to keep building onto this. And like I had said in our podcast previously, 2 days ago, the idea is to be more centered around things happening in Binghamton and upstate New York, our local area, to where I can directly affect things, the outcomes of situations, or things that happen in the news directly affect the population that's listening. That's kind of the idea. I, as an entrepreneur, I've done a lot of things so far in business that are a way to say is not so routine that everybody else would do them. Unpopular things, not in a bad way, but I just do things that I enjoy, whether other people are down for it.
So as a result of that, the businesses that I had started in the past, I was very excited. I was very happy to fulfill, or I felt fulfilled, and it was good to do those things, to build those guitars, to clean those fish tanks. But I got to a point where the relationships I had kind of dissolved the purpose or the premise of us actually committing to being in business together. And so it's when you start to lose those things, you start to have to change your path and you have to redefine your goals in business. So with all these things in mind, we're hoping to get some people on board that are going to be like-minded, at the very least, a little bit more exciting than me or less exciting than me. It doesn't really matter. It's just good to have some friends and family involved. Always good to have friends, right? So it's only been a couple minutes so far, but this is pretty much all for right now. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and I'll come back later with the information that I have from the city clerk's office, or rather with the city councilman that I'm speaking to today. I'm not going to give too many specifics simply because I think it's important for us to maintain a small amount of privacy when we are interacting with individuals on the city side, simply because I don't want somebody to hear something on our podcast and then be so offended or be so motivated to do something about it that they want to then seek this person out in real life and do something. That's not the goal of our podcast here. That's not the aim of this idea for a company. We are trying to give information, yes, absolutely, but we want to do it in a way that's not harmful to the people and only provide relevant information, as opposed to just, I met with this person, here's his name, here's his occupation, here's where you can find him usually, because that's not necessarily fair for somebody who doesn't know that I'm going to say, hey, I have a podcast now and I'm going to be not exposing necessarily, but talking about the things that happened here today. That's not going to be given to them in the beginning of this conversation that while I meet with them today, because I don't want them to think that somehow I'm going to put a spin on what they say or that I'm just one more person trying to get views off of this situation. I want this situation to be settled. I want there to be a solution to where I feel safe, people aren't harassed, and there's just an overall sense of we've done the thing that's the issue, or we've completed the task. So once we get to that point, then I can start to say some more about I do these other things. I'm trying to promote myself, yada, yada. But the idea is to solve this problem most of all. It is not to, draw this out to get more views. It is not to incentivize people to collaborate because I want, everybody to get behind John and do something because John said so. It's simply because this is an issue. It's probably the most prevalent issue in our area, which is, crime and homelessness, which a lot of people can say in this country, or a lot of people in New York, especially upstate New York, can say that those are the two largest issues that they run into possibly on a daily basis, outside of things costing, a lot, because I think New Yorkers have the highest tax burden of anybody else in the country, which is too bad, proportionate to how much our vote is considered in the Electoral College. The problem is for New York is that we're always going to be blue because there's so many people living in the city. That's just how it goes for larger cities. But, New York City is the second largest city in the planet, second only to Tokyo, Japan. So the second largest city in the entire world, the first largest city in the entire country, New York City. I believe there is about 19 million people. You know what? We're not actually going to say, because I want to say there's about 19 million people in the city, and there's about 7 million people outside of the city, but that might not be the case, so there's no point in me trying to share information that's not correct. But just know that it's about 2 to 1, 3 to 1 people that live outside of the city that live in the city, those residents of New York, myself included. So somebody who lives in Binghamton in upstate New York here, I'm part of the 7 million people versus I believe it's 19 million people that live in New York City. We're going to fact check this really quick, simply because that's what we do. According to the New York State Census for 2023, from July 1st, 2023, there are approximately 8.26 million people residing in New York City. All right, now that we got that out of the way. But yes, we do have the highest tax burden out of any other person. I think if you live in California, it's like the second. And I think, so according to Google, New York State is number one in the country for the highest tax burden. On average, we apparently pay, I don't know how this is calculated, so this might not be worth even saying at all, but it says on average, a New Yorker will pay about 12% of their income to taxes. Second to that is Hawaii, which that's kind of a surprise to me. I would think California, maybe Washington State, Oregon. I know for the tax burden for people down south, they have a grocery tax. We don't have a grocery tax in New York. So maybe they end up paying more, like they pay more taxes, but their taxes aren't as high So when it comes to straight, bureau statistics from, wherever department that's collecting them, I'm not a tax advisor either, so I can't say with certainty exactly how it works. So there's no point in me trying to fabricate the idea that I know what I'm talking about in this regard. Anyway, now that we have that out of the way, we've confirmed that I'm a New Yorker and that I am somebody who pays the highest amount of taxes out of every other state, unfortunately. That's been established, so that's just too bad. I can't directly remember where I was supposed to be going with that, but I do know what I have to say now. I'll be on my way out of here relatively soon. It doesn't matter what time it is for me here, but I'm going to do a little bit of a break. It's not going to be anything for you guys. It'll just be like a 3-second cut, and then I'll be right into some new information for you guys. Very excited for this meeting. It's been a long time coming. Finally able to do something about this, and I'm very stoked to be able to share what goes on today. So stick around, guys. For you, it'll only be 3, 2, 1. Wow, can a lot happen in such a short amount of time. So I got down there early. I'm happy that I did because we were able to start our meeting early. Very excited to tell you what happened today. So I had a great day, which, as I shared in the last podcast, I do suffer from some mental health issues. I'm bipolar myself, and so I do struggle with depression a lot. But today was a fantastic day, and no matter what, I overcame whatever was in my way. So I might as well just share what happened. I got down there, and I can only tell you so much as to be respectful to the privacy, and also, there's just some information you guys would do better with not having. Not that anything bad happened, but it's just the fact of the matter. That's how the reality of the situation is. It's hard to say. Can't tell you exactly everything, but, So, the best I can do is tell you this. We landed on the decision that I personally will be helping make a recruitment video for the police department. I know that is a crazy idea, but I think it'll have a lot of meaning to it. So after I had my conversation with the city councilman and somebody representing the city clerk's office, they were just taking notes, but they were able to also help out and speak on behalf of the city as well, and fill in for some of the occasions that the other councilman the council person was not able to fully understand. Or more so, there was a lot of gaps that kind of explained, the existence of the gaps explained why there were some discrepancies, we'll say. I had to basically reiterate a lot of the same things I said in the conversation I had with the police officer, with the supervisor. I brought up once again the times where I was accosted by the people, at the time, the 3 people in one day, and then another person. These were all the homeless people. And this is, again, not a discredit to any homeless person. There's nothing wrong with you for being homeless. If you break the law, you're a criminal. There's a problem with that. So being harassed constantly by these individuals, we know we need to do something about it. So I can speak from personal experience. Again, if you'd seen our last podcast, but just to fill in the people that not necessarily have, just so, there's a little bit of an episodic nature to everything, but just as well, you don't have to watch an entire 2-hour video to understand this. I am John Holmberg. I am the person who runs the Vibes Rolled Ice Cream stand in the corner of Court Street and Washington Street. We've done a lot of catering, and right now, actually, we've switched gears because, living in New York, it gets cold, and ice cream isn't the most delectable at 50 degrees out. That's 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyway. So now I do breakfast and lunch, and I opened a new business called John's Breakfast and Lunch. I sell at 400 Plaza Drive, another shameless plug for everybody. But just a little bit more about my background. I've been in business for about 5 years, and I'm almost 25 myself. So if that makes any sense to you, hopefully. But I think overall I'm a pretty nice guy. I know I can say I'm the most modest person on the planet, as a matter of fact. I'm also the least sarcastic, if you're catching my drift. But I don't ski, so there's no problem with that. Anyway, I'm just saying some stupid stuff to Phil because I'm not totally sure how I should say this to you. But basically, I'm doing the best I can to make sure that something's actually done about this situation. Let me tell you the aftermath. So, because maybe I personally feel bad about how things kind of look from a certain perspective. I understand that people that are usually homeless have been disenfranchised at some point in their life, and that's why they end up homeless. It's not because they're just like, you know what, I don't feel like doing anything ever again. I'm just going to be homeless. Sometimes, I'll give an example of somebody who, how about this? I, in my past, have helped out my friends or semi stranger people that were either couch surfing or to live in my house for a little bit. So I had a friend who we obviously became very close, and we're still very close to this day. Great friend of mine. I won't say who it is, because I don't want there to be any disrespect towards him. Basically, he had an interaction with his brother that he was living with, and they were both from a different country. So they didn't really have any other way to just kind of go to a different place. Their closest family was way out of state. So he asked me one time if he could spend the night with me. Not like that. We'll pause. If he could stay the night at my house, I had a futon, and I also had a pull-out couch. So I was, and this was I think like the second or third time I actually had other people that were like, "Yo, mind if I crash?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're good. Like, no problem with that ever." Mind you, I had a studio apartment, and I was paying like less than $500 or less than $600 a month. So for less than $600 a month, you can't imagine that it was anything spectacular. I'll say it was in Johnson City. It was on Floral Ave. If that rings a bell for anybody, yeah, it wasn't the nicest place. One more time, just to accentuate how incredibly sad sometimes the occasion was. If anybody doesn't know, when there's an overdose and you call 911, they do not send the ambulance from the hospitals. They will send a fire ambulance because they're the people that have the Narcan. Rather, they're just the ones that respond to, I think they both carry Narcan. I'm almost certain of that. But that's just, I think that's just, I'm sorry, we're going to have to look at this one more time. Okay, I just looked at two accounts of people that were actually in the United States that were firemen that had, and this is just on the internet, so the veracity of this information must be challenged, but this is the basis, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct because I'm talking about this already, so it might be confirmation bias, but sorry to say I found something on the internet that does make it sound like this is the truth. So basically, firefighters after 9/11 became more like EMTs because of the duties that were necessary at 9/11. So they just included that overall. So now it allows the actual emergency vehicles that are from the hospital, the actual ambulances, to be freed up for more emergency related care that's not something the fire department does. So that means that EMTs and the fire department are the most likely emergency services to arrive when there's an overdose. Just for clarification, that is the case based on accounts that we have from online, people that have said things on Reddit, also when we Google this, and when we use ChatGPT. So that's just our sources, and if we're wrong, then we're wrong in 3 different ways and on 4 separate occasions. So we're terribly sorry about that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Also, the information that we did leave out before is that ChatGPT had told us that, and again, we have to always worry about the veracity of the information, and that just means the truthfulness of the information, or how valid or worthy the information is. And it basically says that because of the widespread availability of fire ambulances over specific hospitals, say there's less hospitals than there are fire stations, and there's more widespread fire stations in a community than there are hospitals. So that means that there's a faster response, and also that and I guess we're gonna have to look at this one more sec. EMS is emergency medical services, and EMT is emergency medical technician. This is all in an effort to explain that every single time, because where I lived, I could hear I could see from my window the fire department or the fire station on my street. And every single time the fire ambulance went out, I knew it was only for an overdose, right? So that's the whole, I have to always teach you something somehow within all of these podcasts. So that's another subliminal purpose, perhaps, is that I do want to inspire people to learn, and I hope that the information that I do show in a way to teach you guys as well can kind of help you along your way in life. I don't think there's anything wrong with learning. Learning the wrong things, yeah, but just, my father's a teacher, and I've always, when I was younger, I even wanted to be a teacher. My ambitions out of high school, I wanted to be an English teacher or a writer, which obviously we are somewhat a writer because I like I spoke about, I do have a book in some fashion, but moreover, it's important to me that, I do have an ability to teach more so to educate. I think people could do with some education. I could definitely use with some, use with some education. I could use some education. Everybody could use some more education. It's a healthy thing is to continuously learn. Anyway, it does push me into a way of more of a politicized person, not in a way that I had hoped to as well. I can't say that my experiences in the past have necessarily been the most uplifting in regards to interactions with police officers. And that's not as in regard to, or as I say regard, the word regard so often. That's not in terms or in relation to who the police are as a whole or who those individual police officers were individually, or, just collectively the entire idea of a police force. Nothing against those people. I would not want to do that job, but I'm glad that job exists because it needs to, unfortunately. I wish it didn't have to, right? We wish we didn't have to be policed, but we do because people break the law a lot. And so for this instance, it's kind of like, for me, maybe this is why it's so easy to see, because it's a supply and demand issue. And as a business owner, that's like the name of the game. What we're experiencing in Binghamton is that we have an abundance or a high supply of what you can say is crime. So the remedy for that is there's a new demand or a higher demand for police officers. If there's a lower supply of crime, there's going to be a lower supply of police officers. So it's like supply and demand, but it's actually kind of like the opposite. Because usually if something is more scarce, you would have to charge more for it, right? If there's less crime for our sake, which is like, just a different point on the axis. Instead, more policing, we have to be weary of that as well. Reason B, if we get to the point where we're satisfied with how many police officers we have met the quota and they're doing policing, right? What the problem then becomes is, are there too many police officers, or do we need to tone it down, or do we still need to tone things back up or up at all? So the worry becomes, if there's too many police officers, there could be over-policing. Now this is also an issue of mine because, and this is why it's not a political issue for me, because if I was a political person and if I was somebody to say that I need to side on one thing or that it would have to align with my political agenda, I would not be able to overlook, or it would be difficult for me to overlook that there are two sides to this, and at the same time, I take both stances. I know that which is usually a more conservative value, to embolden the police, to give more funding towards the police, or to advocate for the police, which is towards the Back the Blue, which I don't stand for. I'm not somebody who advocates for the strict movement of Back the Blue. Instead, I'd like to say I don't support any political affiliation, or, as a matter of fact, I openly detest and encourage others to disband their political affiliations, whether that be within a party or that a party system or whatever that be for somebody. If they decide that, well, a lot of people that look like me, I'm going to start voting like them just for that reason alone. Whatever you decide, I think it's a bad idea for us to at least engage in what is the political discourse of having only two sides. And that's the problem, because it's one side against the other, and there will never be a true unification of what people need to come together and work together on. We'll never have these unified ideas of what things really should be, because in reality, everything is not black and white. And we understand that, and we know that, so that's the issue. But when we get to that point, when we're able to differentiate between, okay, one thing is good, one thing is bad, but that's only through our subjection of will or whatever we decide at the time. Maybe you're not obviously deciding at the time, you've had your morals for a while, but you allow that to dictate whatever's going to affect a lot more people. That's something that we have to worry about, or at least I say I concern myself with. So with all of this in mind, I encourage people to be fair and to not follow their same party lines, because that's a dangerous thing.
With all of these things said now, I can more talk about how things went yesterday for me. Because yes, at this point it is yesterday. I tried my best after I had done some recording and I just could not get everything done with everything aftermath. I had to speak to some people. I had to share a lot more information. And basically rehashing the story for the 8th or 9th time was just not a productive thing. I say 8th or 9th, it was going to be probably the 5th time after speaking to both of my parents, my business partner, and already going over it once. But mind you, I also had spoken to a lot of the business owners afterward. So yes, the conclusion we came to was that what we're going to do is I'm going to be in a recruitment video. I'm going to make sure that I'm able to say what I feel like I need to say. I will not be told what to say. I will not be prodded into using language that I wouldn't usually care to use, because that's just not the person that I am. I'm not going to have somebody speak on my behalf. I am the person that is going down and speaking on the behalf of everybody else who either doesn't have a voice or is unwilling to. But that's fine because we've had conversations with, or I've had conversations with whoever I've had to, whoever's been necessary to speak to so far. And I found great progress in what I've been able to do. The meeting went well. After we spoke, I went to some businesses in my area. I tried to do a shout out. I can't find the video now, so that's too bad. But I'll just say I went to Strange Brew. Strange Brew is a great business. I really enjoy them. I used to work there. They're great people, and they have really good breakfast food as well. Try out their mac and cheese. They have grilled cheese macs. If you've never tried that before, you're missing out. Then I went across the street and I spoke to the owner of Stadium 138. If you guys know who that is, he's a pretty cool dude. If people living in Binghamton know, he used to be the old mayor, so he certainly has a lot of connections in the police academy and the police force. So he was interested in working with me on this, and so I had approached him and said, hey, I've had a meeting with a councilman, and this is what we decided to do. Would you be willing to either, be included in this in any shape or form if you also want to be in the video? And he said, yeah, 100%. I thought that was very helpful, and I was glad that we were kind of moving in a direction to where everybody's willing to collaborate with me now and kind of do what needs to be done. So that's exciting, right? Afterwards, I went to Saul Stearns. Saul Stearns is where I got my first suit ever. I bought my first suit there. It was less than $500, and it was an amazing suit I've used on many occasions for over 4 years now. I got it back in 2020. Saul Stearns is an incredible business. Ron Saul, he bought that business from his father, or he bought out his shares, and he has been in their business since, well, not himself, but the business has been open since 1928. It's the oldest business, I think, in downtown Binghamton, and he's a very respectful guy. He helped me out a ton, and some of his employees were dealing with some of the same issues that we were, and so they were happy that I was able to actually get something done about this. So one of their employees as well, his name is, actually, I'm going to cut that out. You're just going to hear like a silent sound for when I said whatever his name is. But he's going to help us out. At the very least, he's going to be in the video with me as well. So I think that's really cool. I think that's really nice that he's willing to do that. He was one of the people that told me, if you do go down and speak to the city, you can, use my name, which again, you won't know what that is, but just as well. I went over to China One, right on the corner of Court Street and Washington Street as well. Obviously, I speak to these people often, or I had at least while I was serving ice cream, because the opportunities that I would have, it would lead me to go and collaborate with the businesses in the area. I think that's just the right thing to do. And anyway, while I was doing this, every single day I was going down and serving ice cream, I would always serve to China One 100% of the time. I knew, because the owner, the mother, again, we're not using names, but then the daughter would come, and the daughter and I have become good friends as a result of that. So I just think it's very nice. It's very pure that I was able to go and kind of like speak on their behalf as well. It just makes me happy. So in a lot of different regards, when it comes to how I can help people best, I think the things that are most important is giving the people that don't have a voice. And so far, so good. So after I spoke to the people at China One, I told them, hey, this is what I did today, and this is what I can hopefully help you with, because they have a big window that a lot of people, when they're eating or when they want to go in, sometimes I've known customers to be discouraged because of the loitering homeless population on the outside, or if anybody's causing any type of ordeal. They have a gigantic basic TV screen to downtown, so where you just look out your window and you can see things happening. That causes people to be dissuaded from spending money with them or going to their business, basically. And that's not really fair. I don't think that's very fair. So I spoke to the mom that was there yesterday. I got some I got some fried dumplings. They're absolutely delicious. I recommend them highly. And then I went to Sugar Mountain and I spoke to them, and because they have similar issues as well. Because right where, if you're familiar with downtown Binghamton, Sugar Mountain is right next to the old CVS building, and the CVS building closed down for a multitude of reasons. I think a lot of the time people were stealing from it, so they were just losing so much money. But anyway, they got to a point it's gotten to a point now they've had to shut down. So the homeless people sometimes will kind of encamp around there, and I've seen a couple people there. And there's this one individual who I even know his name. Again, we're not using names, and he had camped his little self in there, and I look at nothing against him for doing that. I don't want to see stuff like that, because I don't think it's necessarily the best look. And I know that if I wanted to do something like that, I probably would get in trouble. I have gotten in trouble for having things outside of compliance before, meaning they had a certain law, which now had been changed, but they had a certain law within the city code for push carts, my business, that I couldn't have things outside of the designated space. There's not really a designated space. It's okay, there's your space, but it's not like here's the lines you have to be in. There used to be, but that was a long time ago. The weather comes and it washes away any type of lines that they keep on a road or a sidewalk. So there's not really like a strict designation of where I should be. So I had a generator this year, and it was loud, but I had it down the road, and some people had complained. And the issue that they said was, okay, whatever, you can have the generator, but you can't have it so far down the road. That's like, well, then it's going to be right next to me. It's going to be really loud. We worked something out, thankfully, but that's besides the point. If I wanted to do something, I could not, and I'd gotten in trouble in the past for trying to do something similar to being outside of compliance. Basically, you don't have a permit to set up something in downtown. You can't just put a bunch of stuff in downtown, right? That's how it goes for a lot of people, or at least that's how it should go. So I went and I spoke to Sugar Mountain, and I told them the same thing, like, hey, I'll speak on your guys' behalf, and I did today, and I'll continue to do so because I know it's difficult for you guys as well. You guys also deal with the same problems. I went also to look for one of the business owners of Courtside Bar. If you guys are familiar with Courtside Bar, they probably have some of the best wings in Binghamton, I'll say. Their buffalo wings are absolutely amazing. That's the place where I get my wings from if I'm ever hungry for some wings. Or Southside Yanni's, but I didn't get to speak to them. Actually, that's not a business anymore. So Old Union Hotel is also great for those living in Binghamton. But I tried to speak to the owner of Courtside. He wasn't there. So hopefully I run into him tomorrow when I go back downtown. Now today is Saturday, so that'll be tomorrow, which is Sunday. I'm going to make some ice cream for the one cousin and the daughter of the mom at China One, because I told them that I would, and it had been a while since they tried some ice cream. So she texted me about it on Instagram. I thought I'd help them out. Anyway, so after that, I went to the Grove and I spoke to a manager about my ambitions. Then I, just as I was leaving, the owner had actually showed up. I won't use names, and I got to speak to him for a little bit. Just kind of like brush him up on all the information that I had spoken to everybody so far. So it was a very, very productive day. I'd gotten home, and then I had called my business partner. I'd waited to talk to my parents about things, taking care of myself. I gotten some food and whatnot. I didn't have time to do all the recording. I did a good amount of the recording yesterday. With what I did yesterday, it was about a half hour. It was about 25 minutes, which I think I edited down probably to about 20 minutes or so now. So whatever this is going to be, it's certainly not going to be an hour and 48 minutes like the last podcast was. I'm thinking as long as I'm able to get this message across of what I did, what the plan is going forward, and any other relevant information, I think that'll be enough for a video for today, or at least to call it for this next installment of the In When You're Out podcast. We'll take a real quick sidebar and just say, what types of things do you guys, our listeners, our viewers, want to see on the podcast? What types of things do you guys hope to see or help to have us talk about? If you want to leave us a comment or send us an email, you can go for it. I'm going to put the email in the description for today if anybody wants to reach out to us. We will do our own independent research on any of the topics you guys send us. I'm going to be the ultimate decision maker on what we talk about on this podcast. The people that I have on, obviously, they can speak about whatever they want. That's just because the freedom of information. You should be able to speak about what you want. The usefulness of the First Amendment. As long as we're not spewing hate speech, like I'd already determined, we're strictly against in our first podcast, but first podcast of this year. That's a long time, and first one on this channel, I should say. And that was maybe another discrepancy as well. Is that I had said that we were going to be on the other channel. I don't have access to that channel anymore. Unfortunately, I'd forgotten the password, and all the backups are not in my name, so we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to post it on the channel I have now, which is fine. It works for me, to be honest with you. But just as well, anything that you guys want us to talk about, I will be the person to look at it. I'm not going to say that if it's something that I just don't think is interesting, that I'm not going to utilize it. But if something is like, how do you make a ham sandwich? We're not going to talk about that. That's just junk. We're going to talk about things that are more appealing to a larger audience, at least within our brand. Of the things we talk about are not superficial. They are substantial in ways that affect many different people, and it's an important issue or it's a relevant topic to discuss. That's why we're bringing this information to the table. It's not just the fact to exist and to spew information that's irrelevant to some, but maybe it's a drama core idea. It's not the purpose of the podcast is to just spread news or to just talk. It is to actually help people and spread information that's going to be useful and helpful that otherwise could not be obtained from people that are not necessarily what I could say is either in the know or have done the things that I've done. I can't name anybody that's gone and done exactly what I've done the past week here, for better or worse. I would love to be able to find some more people, but hopefully this audience that we're building will be full of people that are interested in similar things. So that's kind of the sidebar that went on to a longer tangent, but just as well, that is the purpose of this. Just to reiterate, I think we'll have to probably say this in every podcast. I'll get better at this, I promise. But as for right now, that's all I have to say on that topic. Once I get enough followers on my TikTok, I think I've decided that I'm going to do the podcast on there. I do the socks right now, and I'll probably also do like a pseudo like, hey, by the way, I'm also live trying to sell some socks on TikTok. The entire premise, like I've said, is to like, buy one you get, and then buy one we donate to Salvation Army or we donate to other areas. The reason that we're not doing like donating to parts of Africa is because I'm in the Rotary Club, and what I was told by somebody who had actually brought this up with, this is a pretty fleshed out idea, is that if somebody is already starting a business in an impoverished area in Africa where they need something like that, having a company come through and just give out a bunch of free stuff is going to drown that business. And I was like, you're absolutely right. So that means if there's somewhere in the world and they have a need for socks, right? They can't have access, or they don't have access to socks and they can't get them. It would be, in our eyes as capitalists, it would be better for somebody of their peers or of their group to start a business that sells socks, so that money, that money can be generated for that person in their group, and that can like help the entire group overall. In a way to say how an economy works, if one person is doing good, he pays taxes, the entire, economy that he's paying taxes into gets to grow if he's able to do well in business, So that's kind of like the purpose in that. But if we come in, or I come in and I, with Socks with John or whatever, I think I'm just going to call it Socks with John, honestly. I had a different idea, but Socks with John has been the brand so far. So that'll do. If we decide to go in and just give socks away for free, even if somebody didn't have that intention, maybe that was their intention at some point, or if they don't have the ability to do so, we don't want to destroy the opportunity that people have. So that's not to say that, we're not going to help people because they need to help themselves. I'm 100% for helping people. But it's about not wanting to harm people with the help that we do, because it might be, what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I've experienced that many occasions on people want to do things that are, at the end of the day, there's great intentions behind this, and it's like the end goal is to do this good thing. But what's become of it, or the process, or how you got there, was the kind of, that's why people don't do things like this, or the discouragement of why you don't do that could become the causality of this is, the bad way to do things, right? Like it's difficult, so there's an easier way to do it, but the easier way is like the worst way. Or affects people in a negative way. Anyway, so that's the premise of why we want to keep it local. And also, I don't know if there's any like major sock retailers in the area that would really be affected if we did something like this. Because I had worked closely with Saul Stearns, I had worried that if we were going to sell clothing, especially because we were like right on the street corner, if we sold clothing, we would compete with him. And he was like, technically, but not really. So I've asked him like, would it be okay? And I got his blessing, just because I have a serious respect and a great thankfulness towards that man for what he was able to help me with my first year of business. So I would never want to put him out, or I'd never want to harm his business simply because I wanted to sell socks. He doesn't mind if I do it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. So this has been on the books for a little bit to be able to do. It's just been about the initial investment of, hey, we should buy the socks and design them so then we can sell them and start, actually becoming more of a business, or turn this extra idea of me making sock videos on TikTok and promoting myself to actually turn that into something profitable so that I can continue to do it. I've done it for about a year. I've noticed that my videos have gotten more views for sure since when I started. I think my first video got like 70 views. Still today, maybe has like 80. And now one of my more recent videos, I keep saying the wrong word, I think it has like almost 900, which that's not really a lot, but the growth that's taken about a year with the consistency, and I fell off a lot, but I did my best with the depression that I'd overcome. Putting yourself on camera and being a super nice and smiley, sparkly guy is very difficult when you're depressed. So, when you're wearing these very nice, and some people could say obnoxious, I don't say obnoxious, these intricately designed, stylish, and creative socks. That's something that makes me happy. But it's difficult still to kind of put myself on camera and speak and be like, "Hello, everybody. It's sock time," or whatever I say. It's sock time. It's not what I say, but I will touch on everything that I've spoken about already. I'll kind of double back, just because it's the right thing to do, especially when you're the first to account for a lot of information. I want to make sure I've gotten it out in the most precise way possible, and that everything that I've said is accurate to what was actually said. So I will go over this again in probably the next podcast more thoroughly, or at least once more. So anybody has any questions, they can ask me in the comments of, hey, did this happen? Because I left out a lot of information, simply because there's specifics that are irrelevant to people on the internet. It would not make sense to people if I brought this information up anyway. As a respect for the privacy of the people, of the actual names that we use, businesses, that's one thing, because these people I'm trying to help out, I'm trying to promote. So if you want to go explore these businesses because I said them on the podcast, please do. I encourage that. But if you want to be upset about something, or if you want to impose harm on any of these people, you're not going to get their names and or likelinesses, because that's not fair to them, right? So just as well, I'm not going to name the people that I met with. I'm just going to say there was a representative from the city clerk's office, and there was also a sitting city councilman. So they were able to help me out with their time. At the very least, we had a nice discussion for about 40 to 45 minutes. I did ask if I could record it, and I was going to put some of the sound bites onto the podcast, only if they were comfortable with that. And I was going to be very, very crystal clear, but they said, I'd prefer if you didn't record that. Okay, no problem at all. Not a big deal. We're going to do something else then. I'm just going to have to remember the best I can. So the things that we went over, there were times where things were a little tense, but it wasn't because of us butting heads. It was just the topic is a little bit, we were already neck deep in our discussion. It was difficult to kind of see each other's ideas necessarily as crystal clear as we could sometimes otherwise. So we were, not quite exactly seeing eye to eye. And in a similar way, like I had said in the beginning of the podcast, the city representative from the city clerk's office, they were more speaking, and they had just been there actually to take notes. So I was hoping to hear more from the city councilman, but I ended up hearing about half and half from both of them, which, like I said, not a problem, but I would have preferred to hear more from the city councilman. But perhaps that shows that he wasn't equipped in the best regard to take care of this situation head on, especially through the conversation I had with him. And this is information I'll tell you, but it's not necessarily reflecting on him the best, but you don't know who he is, so it doesn't matter. I personally, if I was a resident of the district that could vote for his seat, I would not vote for him, simply because I don't believe he is a very energetic person, or perhaps I witnessed a lot of lethargic behavior that when you're in government is not conducive to a productive environment. So when you're the type of person that's not really willing to do something, but you also have the power to do it, that's something that gets under my skin, one. But two, it just shows that there's somebody that would be, if there is somebody more willing to do your job, that could do your job better than you. So I was a little disappointed with the responses that I got from the city councilman, from that exact city councilman, just his responses. But it does seem like he was willing to help me out in this endeavor. He realized it's a problem, and that if nobody was going to work on it, it was going to become a worse problem. So at the end, they thanked me for their time. I thanked them for their time and their willingness and commitment to meet with me. And eventually, we got to a point where we're on to the next step. And that's the thing with a lot of the issues I deal with in my life. Whether there be something in business that we need to discuss with multiple people and then come to a solution, it's about then implementing that solution and then finding the next step. That's the problem I run into the most time, is that other people don't see that, is that they want to linger on these ideas of what's easy to kind of we'll hypothesize an idea, but when it comes to actually implementing it and coming up with something else and building on that idea, because it does become a little bit of okay, well, you got to commit to that. I mean, you're going to put your name on it. You kind of in a way become responsible for whatever fault becomes of this. So if you're at fault, something happens and it was your idea to begin with, yeah, you're probably going to feel guilty. You're going to feel bad. So people immediately, it's that much alone. It's the fear of, I don't want to be the person making the decisions, because if I make a bad decision, it comes back on me. I have made a lot of bad decisions, and I got good at making good decisions. I still make bad decisions, but I understand when it's a bad decision. So it's not like I'm so helpless to the fact that things happen in my life and they just roll right over me. Everything in my life is just so unobtainable that things happen to me. I don't happen to life. No, that's not the case at all. I want to be somebody that happens to life. I want to be somebody that, I do things, and it's whether for the better or worse. I hope for the best, but you expect the worst, right? But that's just how it goes. So that's my personal opinion on how I feel, that the city councilman probably wasn't doing the best job on this specific issue. So on this regard, and with my priorities, if I had the ability to vote, I would not vote for this specific councilman. You don't know who it is, so this is not a discredit to their person. It's just how I personally feel. And through my experience, this is why I feel the way I do. Hopefully through sharing that, you get a little bit of a better idea, so it doesn't just seem like blatant hate towards somebody for not doing exactly what I wanted. We came to a great conclusion, and the situation is soon to be resolved in a way that's beneficial for all parties involved. So that is, the order of operations has been a very lengthy, very lengthy order. The operations have been basically concluded, so we're on to the next step. So we've decided that I'm going to be in the police recruitment video. I'm going to make sure I can maintain my vision and say whatever I need to say. We also need to work on the vision of the Binghamton Police, because a lot of the residents, perhaps myself included, don't have the most positive outlook when it comes to considering the police department. So that's something we can work on, as well as recruiting people. And once we get more people into the police department, they get the proper training, they can start affording to put more people where they need to be. And then the police can do what they need to do in downtown Binghamton with addressing the homelessness issue, but also addressing the crime issue, which does seem to become more relevant with the homeless population, but there is a crime issue in downtown perpetuated by the homelessness. So if that makes sense, hopefully I did the best thing possible. This is not a situation where I want to say, everybody please go check out and, become a police officer. No. I don't want to become a police officer. I would not recommend something to somebody if I did not personally want to do it. It's a dangerous job, and it's a thankless job for most of the occasion, but it's a very necessary job. So if you yourself, you feel like it's an important thing for this community to be more safe, and you want to have a hand in that, there's opportunities for you arising if there's not already opportunities. We'll have a more structured idea of what it looks like for people to actually apply and for people to get into the police academy so that they can become these police officers that we need. But it's once we have all the, this is the foundation set. It's once I have these conversations with the Economic Development Center, we can look at how much of a budget they have towards making a video like this. Then I can come up with a script for what I want to say and who else is going to be involved in the video. That will do a number on their recruitment. I'm absolutely sure of it, especially with the other business owners that are willing to participate. That's going to be a great look. So I think, all the residents of Binghamton, if you're not in Binghamton, I'll still probably post the video on here, just because if I'm going to be part of it and I put so much work into it so far, I want to promote it. I want things to do well. But mind you, I am not somebody who's very pro-police or back the blue. This is just a necessary issue. This is not like a necessary issue, but this is an issue with a necessary cause. And that, unfortunately, and like I said, I've said this already, we don't want to run into an issue where then we have to worry about over-policing because there's too many police officers, or that there's injustices happening because the police officers have a certain way about them now that they're worried. Well, we have to fix the problem, and so we're going to do that a little ham-fisted, which is overlooking a lot of people's rights. That's a concern of mine. So I'll be very adamantly opposed to any type of more strict enforcement of laws if it's not already the things that are so lax. So for the instance of, in the past, somebody basically got away with threatening me, littering all over my area, being drunk in public, being disorderly, causing problems, Those are offenses. You cannot be drunk in public. You cannot threaten people with violence. You cannot litter. But the police officer that I had eventually spoken to that day and brought up my issues and said, hey, right across the street, me pointing at that guy, there he is, go do something about it. It was that inaction of the police officer. So there's not really anything I can do. And I brought all of this up to the city and a police officer 2 days ago. Basically, if there was something, I think I said this on the last podcast, but truly, if there was something that you were so offended that I had said to you, you would probably find a way to get me in handcuffs or something. There's always something that they could have done. So when this individual, for the sake of the homeless guy that was drunk, it was sleeping on my area, who made a big mess and then threatened me. Again, there is a name for him, but I'm not going to use his name because I don't know if it's his real name or if it's actually like a derogatory thing, but regardless. So, and I brought this up yesterday as well. That's with my meeting, and they could probably picture in their head the guy. So just the fact alone that they know him as well, and this guy's been getting away with things for a very long time, that's another failure on the part of the police. And so that's something we want to avoid if they're going to change a mentality. Okay, not only do we have to do more policing, we have to enforce things better. You have to be careful because, yes, if that's the answer to the solution, if that's the answer to the problem, there's the solution. You just have to be careful with your enforcement of the solution, right? That's like saying, we're hungry. So what we're going to do is plant some crops, and then in 3 months, we're going to harvest those crops and feed everybody. Okay, that's a great idea. Who knows how to plant crops? Nobody? Okay, we're just going to wing it. And you don't do it correctly. In 3 months, you don't get the full effect of what your crops could be. So that's kind of what the situation looks like. We'll be in a separate difficult situation if we get more police officers, but they end up doing the wrong thing or don't do what they need to do at the times where it's most important. So it's a delicate balance of getting more police officers, getting them the proper training, getting them the proper resources, and then having them address their policing style properly, correctly, and with rights and proper intent. Or I've said proper a lot, but with the individual rights and good intentions involved. That's the entire antithesis of the whole movement of what we're trying to accomplish here. We need people to do the right thing. We need people to get help. We need people to stop breaking the law. This is the best way we can do this. I'll ask you guys now, is there anything with the information I've given you so far, with the inferences that you can draw, the conclusions that you can make, is there anything that you could say that we had failed on or we could do better? Or rather, you have an idea for this specific situation that you think we could do something about differently. If you have any type of idea, or if you'd like to share something, please let us know. Again, I'm going to put my email in the bottom of this description, or a email you guys can contact. And then if you want to comment on this video, I'll get back to you on this video and we can have whatever type of discussions. And so much more. If you would like to, we can actually set up a meeting. We can just do like an over the phone conversation, and I'll record it, and then we'll put that on YouTube, and that'll be, say, I'm an expert in, whatever field, and I watched your whole podcast, and I was thinking of something the whole time, and I was waiting for you to say it, but you never said it. So I had to say it to you in person or over the phone, just so that I could address this, because I want to hear your opinion. That's the type of community we're trying to build, and that's the type of accountability and information that we're trying to uphold as well. So if you think there's something that we've done that you think we could do better on, let us know, and we will begin to do better if it's the right idea about things. So that's how we try to be as transparent as possible with our ambitions, because the more transparency, more people are able to feel comfortable with helping us and applying the same type of love and care they would to their own individual efforts or projects. So it's with all these things in mind that we appreciate everybody's input. The worst idea, in my opinion, is the one that's not shared. It's like the worst, the dumbest question is the one that's never asked. The worst idea is the one that's not shared. Just for like a quick little phrase of speech. This podcast is almost over. We've gone on for about an hour now so far with the editing. I think I can get it to about 50 or so minutes, over 50 minutes. So that might just have to do because this has been 3 or 4 separate recording occasions over the course of 2 days. I really just want to get this video out so that you guys have the context and the conversation can begin on what we should do about everything. Thank you, everybody who's been willing to stick along and watch this entire video. If you guys appreciate shorter videos, let me know. If you're here for the longer videos, if you want me to post the 2 or 3, sometimes hour-long videos. I don't think I've ever made a 3-hour-long video. But if you want to see the 2-hour-long video, the last one that we posted was about 1 hour and 48 minutes. Go check that one out. This one's only going to be about 1 hour, maybe just over 50-something minutes. But whatever you guys would enjoy more, please let us know. As for today, this is all from the In One Ear Out podcast. Once again, I'm your host, John. Thanks for sticking around, and we will see you very, very soon. Thank you for watching as always. Until next time, Adios, muchachos. Peace out.